So I think at this point we've all seen the Joe Rogan interview, and I just want to throw my hat into this. First off, I want to start by saying I like Joe Rogan. I don't like listen to his podcast per se, but I do watch his clips, and for the most part, I think I have some of the same like policies and just general concerns about society for the most part when it comes to what we both agree with, right? And I'm not going to insult Joe Rogan here. I'm not going to belittle him because some of the things he is saying are true in what he said in the video. And other things I feel like are just completely off base and are kind of unfair with what he's saying and are almost hypocritical. So I'm going to like go bit by bit and just showcase each part of the video and just kind of give my own personal interjections for how I personally think things are. So let's start off with about a minute into the video where he starts talking about video games themselves.
They're not modeling their life after someone that they see that they admire, someone that's successful, someone that is doing something that they enjoy and love. Sometimes kids have to see that. Right. And if their parents are living a bullshit life and their neighbors are living a bullshit life and most of their family lives a bullshit life, they just fucking lay around, you know, and then they seek refuge in drugs or video games or something that stimulates them. And video games are a real problem. They're a real problem. You know why? Because they're fucking fun.
Addictive.
And you don't, yeah, well, I have a real problem with them. And you do them and they're real exciting, but you don't get anywhere.
So one important thing that I feel like people aren't fully getting is that he's not fully just saying like video games are a waste of time per se. He does say that later in the video. But what he's saying is that video game addiction is the problem. And that's a very true point. Video game addiction is a problem, just like any kind of addiction of any kind. But, you know, and just like every single kind of addiction, if you do too much of it, it will get you nowhere. It will hurt you in the long run when it comes to life. That I totally agree with. However, the concept that it won't get you anywhere is false. That's just the cold, hard truth of the matter. 10 to 20 years ago, probably it wouldn't get you anywhere. But in the current day and age, it's could very much well get you somewhere. If you get good enough at a video game, you could take it somewhere. It might be easier or harder depending on the game you're playing. But if you get good enough at a game, you can take it somewhere, whether it be just being the absolute best at it. If it's a popular enough game, you could teach it. If it's a popular enough game, you could speed run it. If there's a competitive scene for it, if you're the absolute best, people will pay to not only see you, but you can go to tournaments and win. Like that kid who won that Fortnite tournament, he won how many millions by playing Fortnite? So you can take it somewhere, and even beyond that, if you are entertaining enough or you're able to like branch off well enough, you can still also take that career of playing video games into being a streamer. Or then you can take your love of video games into something. So this concept that doesn't really get you anywhere isn't fully true. However, the concept of being addicted and not doing anything with your life with it, that is true. But again, that's all addictions.
Right. It's like you could do like martial arts, right? You could learn jujitsu. You get obsessed by jujitsu, and then 3 years later, you're like an elite jujitsu athlete. You're entering in competitions. You're a purple belt.
You're moving up.
Yeah, you're doing well. Right. You're thinking like, I might be able to open my own school one day.
You got confidence.
Yeah, if I have 100 students and those 100 students are paying me X amount of dollars per month, I can make a living. Holy shit, I can have this would be amazing. And then you see your jujitsu school, and your jujitsu instructor has all these students and drives a Mercedes, and he's got a nice family, and like that's the future. This way. You're doing something exciting and fun, and you don't. Or you could just be playing fucking video games. 3 years later, you could be that same kid just playing video games, waiting for the next whatever the fuck game is, you know, next Xbox game to come out, and you're gonna waste your time.
This part I feel is just kind of wrong. What he's saying here, I feel like can be said about any hobby. I personally love martial arts. I study that shit all the time. I still, even during this pandemic, I still keep practicing because I just personally enjoy it. And I've been practicing my entire life, but I know I'm not gonna be able to reach a peak that will make me competitive in it. And while I do love it as a hobby, I'm not going to be taking it to making it a career. So is it a waste of time? Or what about the people who watch sports a lot, listen to podcasts, or anything that can be considered a hobby? Is that a waste of time? In fact, by your own logic, listening to your podcast for all of this time, Mr. Rogan, is equally a waste of time then, correct? If you're enjoying the time with what you're doing with it and you're able to have a life, that's fine. It's also hypocritical to say that you won't be able to do anything with it. You can do something with playing video games now. Again, this isn't 10 to 20 years ago when they were just seen as that time waster. In the current day and age, we have our top streamers and our top esports competitors legitimately making as much, if not more, than our sports players. Not obviously like the Dwayne Wades and LeBron Johnson levels of money, but again, kid who won at Fortnite, dude made how many millions? And then you have PewDiePie, people, those really big streamers like PewDiePie. Well, before when Ninja was really big, Dr. Lupo, those huge streamers who are reportedly making many millions of dollars. You have Markiplier, who's just doing Let's Plays, who's making so many millions of dollars and stuff like that. So you can take playing video games to do something nowadays. That's just the cold hard truth of the matter. And again, it isn't easy. It's not going to be just like, if I just play video games, it's not just going to magically happen. But that's just like with any hobby. If you put in the work, and the time, you get that little bit of luck, you can take it somewhere. And on the flip side, sometimes it won't happen. But just like that, with every other hobby, you think every single person who practices music is able to take it to a career? No. That's why there's so many starving artists and starving musicians out there. You think every single person who makes art is able to become like the next Rembrandt or something? Wait, isn't Rembrandt a musician? Whatever. But no, obviously, again, so many starving artists. Everyone who starts a podcast isn't going to be the next Joe Rogan. Everyone who watches sports isn't going to be the next Ocho Cinco. Everyone who does things as a hobby isn't going to be the next big thing. So I don't think it's really fair to compare that. Can say, oh, you could be successful. Well, you could be successful here too. That's just how it is when it comes to hobbies. If you are having fun with something, you should just be allowed to have fun with it.
You have children. I have children, and it's a big battle in the house.
Yes.
And my kids, I don't know if you're going through this, but my kids are now saying, well, Dad, this guy made all this money with this video game. That's
real too. That's
right?
real too now.
So like that's 1 in a billion, kid.
I don't know if it's 1 in a billion, but you know, look, I heard the same argument about comedy. My own parents were like, "Do you know how few people make it as a comedian?" I was like, "Okay, does anybody make it? Somebody makes it, right? They figure out how to do it. They make a living. I'm going to do that. Yeah. Just stop. Like I know what I'm doing." I was real lucky that my parents were not around very much, so I didn't get much advice. So I figured it out myself. So there was no one telling me I couldn't do it.
Got it.
So
green fields.
I was like, I'm gonna find my way through this, and since no one's telling me it's impossible, no one's telling me I can't. Occasionally, I would hear someone say, "What are the odds?" I'm like, "Listen to this fucking loser." That's my thought. Was always like, that guy's a loser.
This part right here just confuses me because he's saying, "Well, I wanted to do this thing that didn't have a high chance of working out, but I did it anyway because my parents weren't around to tell me that I couldn't do it." So, wait, what are you trying to say here? Are you trying to say that you shouldn't do it if it's a waste of time, or should do it, or should perceive it, or not perceive it? I'm just confused on what you're trying to say exactly here. This is a little bit throwing me kind of off.
But there are kids that make a lot of fucking money playing video games. But the thing is, like, you have to be adaptable. You have to be able to play multiple video games, because the one video game that you get really good at, what are the odds that's going to be around 5 years from now?
Right.
You know, like, what's the big one now? Like Fortnite, is that? Do they make money off of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's Call of Duty.
Call of Duty,
they make money off that. What's the big money? StarCraft used to be the big one, right?
That, League of Legends, Counter-Strike.
Counter-Strike is it's still the Half-Life mod.
Yeah, variations of it have come out, but it's still basically the same exact game.
They don't make money off Quake though, right? Not really.
Nah, really.
No.
One or two guys do, I think.
Yeah, see, it's you got to pick the right game. You know, you could be obsessed with the wrong
What are you
game.
You're going to spend 5-10 hours a day in the house?
You have to.
Right.
You would have to.
But yeah, I agree with some of the things he's saying here. You shouldn't become addicted to video games, and you shouldn't let them control your life. Just like every single hobby out there, every single one, whether it be something that's more physically active, like working out, which is just as dangerous if you do too much of it, which is kind of funny if you think about it, to just playing music, to practicing a sport. All of them have their own risk if you become addicted to them. So the addiction part, I completely agree with. But the concept of you can't make anything out of it is not realistic nowadays. And you have just as much chance with being the next Markiplier or Ninja or Tim the Tap Man or any of these huge video game personalities as you do being the next Kobe Bryant. Oh, that's maybe not the best example. Being the next Wayne Gretzky, being the next Ocho Cinco, being the next Peyton Manning, being the next of that big person. It just depends on you getting lucky, putting in the work, and just being at the proper place at the proper time. Think about it. Let's say like you're like the best football player in Alaska. Chances are people aren't going to come and scout you because, you know, you're just not in the right place, which is kind of the exact same argument he's saying, like, you got to pick the right game. I guess you got to pick the right location too, right? Either way, I agree with the concept of don't become addicted to video games, but I don't feel like any hobby where you're having fun with, as long as you aren't getting addicted to it, is a waste of time. Enjoy what you want to enjoy, whether it be video games, recreational drugs, Mr. Rogan, working out, doing a sport, learning a new talent, whatever. So, yeah. And in closing, though, I want everyone out there to have a good morning, evening, day, or night, wherever you're at. But for right now, I'm out. Later.